Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning to everyone. Okay, today chapter is chapter 9, the organization developments and sense making approach.
In this slide, represented by Siti MAZLIN binti RIJAL, NABIHAH binti ROSLI, Siti ASHIKIN binti AZHAR, Nurhani Shahira binti AZMAN, and also the last one presented by Siti MAISARAH binti SHAIKH AZRI.
My name is Nurhani Shahira binti AZMAN. Okay, for today's discussion, we will discuss about the learning objective and then the alternative approach to managing change, and next is organization development (OD), and next is appreciative inquiry (AI), and then positive organization scholarship (POS), and then the dialogic organization development, and last one is sense making. We also discuss about the literature review or the key study and the summary of the whole chapter 9, and we also give you the reference of our slides. Our learning objective for this chapter 9 is: first, appreciate more clearly the organization change approach underpinning the coach and interpreter image of managing change. Second, understand the organization development (OD) approach to the change. Third one, be aware of extension of the OD approach such as appreciative inquiry (AI), positive organizational scholarship (POS), and dialogic (OD). And the last one is understand the sense-making approach to the change.
Okay, so we go through for the first slide, that is image of managing change, approach and focus. For the image first, that is coach. The approach is organization development, appreciative inquiry, positive organization scholarship. For the focus is broadly based on importance of humanistic value, democratic value and developmental values. Okay, in importance of humanistic values, that is openness, honesty and integrity. And for democratic value, that is social justice, freedom of choice and involvement. And for the development values, that is authenticity, growth and self-realization. Okay, for the image 2, there is interpreter. The approach is dialogic audit and sense making. For the focus, this meaning influence people behavior and how managers of change can take into this account. Okay, for the next slide is organization development. Okay, OD has played a central role in the management of organizational change for more than half a century. It was a major approach to organizational change across the Western world and increasingly the globally. Okay, for traditional OD, we got 9. First is plan whole system focus. Second is top management involvement. Third is aim to improve effectiveness. 4 is long terms. 5 is action oriented. 6 is changing attitude and behavior. 7 is experiential learning is important. 8 is group or teams focus. 9 is values basic is humanistic, democratic and development. Okay, for the OD step, we got 8. First is problem identification, consultation. 3 is data gathering and problem diagnosis. 4 is feedback, 5 is joint problem diagnose, and 6 is joint action planning, 7 is change action, and 8 is further data gathering.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti ASHIKIN binti AZHAR. My matric number I1810264. Okay, for the first subtopic is I will be continue for my friend is criticism of organization development or OD. Okay, application OD is an approach to managing change become more widespread. Okay, OD approach began to knowledge that there are problems in the field. Okay, for example is daripada French and Bills 1995 they identified 6 of these is one is OD definition and concepts. Okay. Second is internal validity problems and external validity problem. 4 is lack of story. 5 is problem which measuring attitude change, and 6 is problem which normal science approach to research. Okay, for French and Bill 1995 is adopted an optimistic view of the situation, arguing that these do not appear to be insurmountable problem at this time, although they continue to plagiate research efforts. Okay, for OD has been presented with a range of other criticism relating to the extent to which it deals adequately with issues is leadership, strategic change, power and reward system. Okay, are OD value universal? Okay, first is challenge levels OD is whether that approach and the values underpinning it are relevant outside of the US where it was predominantly developed. Challenge value as being universal, which culture difference serving as a veneer which cover common fundamental human existence. The great sustain and extend core OD values in seeking greater candor, openness and trust in organization. The great maps 7 leadership style that vary in terms of their emphasis on people versus results. One the leadership style have 7 is controlling, accommodating, status quo, indifference, paternalist, opportunist, and sound. Okay, the grid has been used as the basis for change leadership seminars, helping for establish both of individual awareness and skills. The evidence from years of application of OD in diverse country is that national culture values are more akin to a veneer that covers more fundamental and universal needs. OD advocates are more circumspect about how far the OD approach is relevant across culture boundaries. Okay, Marshall 1993, OD practitioner needs to view which care any assumption they may hold that OD practice have universal applicability. Okay, for Mervis 2006, OD become more open to a pluralism of ideas by drawing from both Eastern and Western styles of thought. Okay, next is OD change culture born? Okay, they have two difference is Leibniz or the assumption and confusion or choice assumption. Okay, let's see for the Leibniz or the assumption is the Leibniz and or the assumption first is linear. Linear is movement from past to present to future. Okay. Next is Leibniz is progressive, like new state more desirable. Okay, goal oriented is specific and state in mind, and based on creating this equilibrium is by altering current field of force. Okay, for the plan and managed by people separate from change itself is application of technique to achieve desired ends. And last is unusual is assumption of static of semi-static state outside of a change process. Okay, for the confusion or choice assumption, okay, he is cyclical or constant ebb and flow. Okay, there is professional like harmonious movement from one state to another. Okay, journey oriented is cyclical change, therefore no end state. Okay, based on maintaining equilibrium is achieving natural harmony. Okay, observe and follow by involved people where who constantly seek harmony with their universe. And last is usual assumption of constant change as in the yin yang philosophy is new. Okay, next is engaging in large scala change. Okay, biggest challenge to the traditional OD fight was the criticism that it was sweet to handle large scala organizational change. Traditional audit techniques focus on working with individual and group dynamics through process. They have two is survey feedback and team building. Okay, audit practitioner become to move their focus from organizational issue to macro large system, including aligning change to the strategy needs to the organization. Okay, system technique take a variety of form and names, including okay, first is search conference, future search, real-time strategic change, work cafe, town hall meeting, scenario, world system design, and open space technology. Okay, such techniques are typically designed to work with up to thousands of people at a time. An example of search conference format is Fasa 1 is identifying relevant word trend, same share understanding of global environment. Okay, for Fasa 2 is identifying how trend affect specific issue or organization institution. It is same how global trend impact on operation of the system. Okay, for Fasa 3 is evolution of issue, organization or institution is same creation of its history including its chronology or timeline. Okay, for the Fasa 4 is future design of issue, organization, institution is like same is use of small group, creativity and innovation to design a consensus scenario for the way forward. Okay, Fasa 5 is strategy formulation is same to generation of a great action plan. Okay. Okay, some techniques assume that organization participants can shape and improve their organization and its surrounding environment. Different related to the extent or to which the technique include a majority of organization member and stakeholder. Some techniques are highly structured and use a consultant who manage the process, whereas other utilize more flexible, safe design approach. Unites this technique is underlying assumption that a few are no longer left in the position of deciding for the need. Techniques are designed to assist organization in being responsive to their current business condition. Okay, for application in large-scale system-wide situation is one is the that represented in the World Trade Center, and this method have also been applied in the similar scala situation. Okay, proponents of large-scale intervention approach are growing, sometimes almost evangelical in expounding their benefit. Okay, rule is system change technique and their likely effectiveness in highly volatile environment. System-wide culture change programs are less relevant today than more specific situational intervention. They have two is virtual team building and management of merge process. A limit which this critique is the issue of the feasibility of system-wide change in an era, the increasing centrality of inter-organizational alliance and network in the business world provide an opportunity for change method. Okay, large-scale intervention have particular relevance. Okay, that's all for my slide, and we will continue for my friends. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SITI MAZLIN binti Muhammad RIJAL and my mentor number is I181028887. Okay, today I would like to present about the appreciative inquiry. First, the appreciative inquiry approach to the problem solving and change management on the other hand enable franchising large groups and ensuring their emotional involvement for managing change. David Cooperrider, the founder of the appreciative inquiry, say, "We have reached the end of the problem solving as a mode of inquiry capable of inspiring and sustaining human system change." Okay, the future belongs to the method that affirms, compel and accelerate learning while including the voices of all the people who will be affected by the change. Okay, the second one is appreciative inquiry is a unique invitation to bring people together to create the future they care about by innovating on top of the very best of the past. The appreciative inquiry approach for managing change, restore trust, generate hopes, invite vision and open up infinite vistas of possibilities. No other methodology has the potential to be as effective in addressing challenging issues while impacting transformation, because the most important question in the diagnosis for driving change is to understand what gives life to these individuals, their teams and their organization. And the last point is change is a frame as a process of identifying what might be possible in the future by building on existing strength. Now, we will go to the 4D cycle. The AI approach recommends the 4D cycle to drive change. Sitting right at the center of the discover, dreams, design and destiny are the life-giving forces, the unique elements of culture of the organization, and it's an organic rhythm that can make the change succeed. Okay, the first 4D approach for driving change begins with the discover, which is involved asking about the best of what is. Appreciative inquiry suggests that any change intervention that is an improvement can only be undertaken if we first understand the organization or team's journey of excellence and accomplishment. Therein lies the strategy for managing change successfully and making it meaningful for all. Okay, the second of D is having understood the best of what is available to enable the change to succeed is a dream stage, where the groups imagines what could be. Okay, they actively invest in visioning a world when the change has been successfully implemented, and using the anticipatory principle, imagine the detail for implementing the change successfully. Okay, the next D is a design. It's about creating a plan for execution. This stage is similar to creating a blueprint for transitioning from as is to go to stages in the traditional change management process. The difference is it involves everyone and is designed by leveraging life-giving forces, thereby eliminating resentment and resistance to change. Next, the destiny stage is about accomplishing the dreams, deciding how the group will ensure the design is on track. How will they know they have reached the milestone to achieve their dreams? Okay, destiny involve reviewing progress, testing the metric for success, and keeping the group energized, going to drive change with positivity and enthusiasm. The 4D approach enables more discovery, more dreams, more design, and greater destinies within the organizations. The appreciative inquiry approach teaches that language can create reality, and the act of inquiry is not prelude to the interventions, and it is the intervention. Therefore, inquiry and change are as simultaneous occurrence. Secondly, the intention of the inquirer and the nature of the question determine the answer. So the outcomes lies asking the right questions. Questions in appreciative inquiry are very important as they define the direction of our path. Okay, you generally find what you look for and what you focus on grows and expands. Okay, according to the David Cooperrider, the problem-solving approach direct attention to the worst of what is and constantly examining what is wrong within the organization. It is assumed that something is broken, fragmented, and needs to be fixed. It is erroneously believed that if the problems are fixed, the desired future will automatically unfold. Leaders need to be mindful of what questions that they are asking and what word they use to define realities for their teams. Okay, culture is a word loosely used to define any behavior consistently observed in the environment, or to describe how the organization behave or react to the both adverse and happy occasions. Okay, it is a collective word to describe the philosophy governing system that processes and the way in which a leader behaves as a representative of the employer. Appreciative inquiry advocates that culture is formed by the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. That culture can get positively impacted by a collective belief that people can influence their future. People within the organization must come together in the large groups and forums to influence and drive change. That's culture healthy, where there is respect for the artistic, spiritual, and creative qualities of life that leaders are responsible to nurture within the organization to create the fertile soil driving and sustaining change. Appreciative mindset is not just about being positive, it is the ability that corresponds to intentional and generative acts. Applying appreciative inquiry is not about posting a label of good on something that is not good, or about unreasonable calling a negative situation positive. The appreciative approach does not mean pretending that terrible things have not happened to people. Instead, it allows painful memories to view as a history, not as the present, and allow the groups to use the opportunity to create a different action for a better future. By framing reality in a new positive way, people open their minds to seeing new connection between ideas, people, or situation. The rapid spread of change that leaders can experiencing today requires us to continually search for new and innovative solutions. The complex problem we encounter. Experience has shown us that the ability to reframe, redefine, and shift mindset is a valuable skill for managers, leaders, and individual contributors. Appreciative inquiry principle provide a leader a compass to help achieve a new innovative solution through the people that are sustainable. Okay, now we will go to the next slide, which is about positive organizational scholarship, as known as a POS. Positive organizational scholarship is an umbrella concept used to unify a variety of approaches in organizational studies, each of which incorporates notion of the positive. Previously, several descriptions have been used to define the domain of POS, including the states and processes that arise from and result in life-giving dynamics, optimal functioning, and enhanced capability and strength. Also, according to Robert 2006, an emphasis on identifying individual and collective strength, attributes, and processes, and discovering how such strength enable humans. Flourishing means like goodness, generativity, growth, and resilience. Also, Cameron, Dutton, and Quinn view of POS is the study of especially positive outcome, processes, and attributes of the organization and their members, and focus on dynamics that are typically described by words such as excellence, thriving, flourishing, abundance, and resilience, or virtuousness. And organizational research occurring at the micro, meso, and the macro level, which point to unanswered question about what the processes, state, and the conditions are important in explaining individual and collective flourishing. Flourishing refers to being in an optimal range of human functioning. These descriptions all emphasize similar terms that describe processes and dynamics perspective and outcome considered to be positive. The most controversial concept associated with POS is the P that stands for positive. Most of the misunderstanding and criticism of POS have centered on this concept, creating controversy in organizational study and spawning both a skeptic and advocates. The term positive is accused of having a potentially restrictive connotation and value bias. Feynman 2006, George 2004, and as being a knife and dangerous term producing more harm than good. It is criticized as implying that most organizational science is a negative, that an ethnocentric bias is being represented, or that a neuromoral agenda is being pursued. The terms has been credited, on the other hand, with expanding and enriching the domain that explain performance in organization, and with opening up rather than restricting organizational studies. Okay, these contradictions have arisen at least partly because of the definitional ambiguity surrounding this term. In brief, the O stand for organizational. In POS focuses on investigating positive process and state that occur in association with organizational context. In examines positive phenomena within the organization and among organization, as well as a positive organizational context themselves. The S is stand for the scholarship. In POS, focus on pursuing rigorous systematic and theory-based foundations for the positive phenomena. Positive organization scholarship require a careful definition of terms, rationale of for prescription and recommendation, consistency with scientific procedure in drawing conclusion, a theoretical rationale, and a grounding in previous scholarly work. Okay, now we will go to the POS perspective that involves the following: Cameron and McNaughton 2014. Number one is adopting a positive lens, which means whether one is dealing celebration success or adversity problems, that the focus is on a life-giving elements. Number two, focusing on a positively deviant performance, which means investigating outcomes that are well in excess of any normally expected performance, that is outcomes that are spectacular, surprising, or extraordinary. Okay, the number three, seeing positivity as providing the capacity for greater achievement, which means the view that positivity generates in individual, group, and organization. Okay, number four is examining virtuousness, assuming that humans have an innate inclination to try to achieve the best that can be achieved. Okay, POS also has critics. For example, is a Feynman 2006. Number one is whether a particular behavior is positive is a subjective judgment and may also be culturally relative. Feynman points to how what are regarded as a positive behavior and emotion differ not just in a different organizational environment but across a different cultural environment. He also points how effusive hope and energizing emotion in the West is not a sentiment or terms prevalent in culture and subculture influenced by Confucianism and Buddhism. Okay. Second, number two, Prioritizing positive behavior risks insufficient attention being given to the important change that can come from attention to negative behavior. He questions whether the positive can be separated from the negative, or whether they are really two sides of the same coin, inextricably welded and mutual reinforcing. An example, happiness may trigger anxiety because of sometimes we are worried that happiness will be lost or not. And also love can be mixed with the bitterness and jealousy. Okay, then number 3 is be positive program can have coercive elements that Feynman argues that this occur where there is a lack of recognition. Then there are different interests in organization, and that's not all people respond well to so-called positive program like empowerment and emotional intelligence that impose a culture of fun in workplace. Okay, but Feynman say this program have mixed or uncertain record. Some can produce a very opposite of the self-actualization and liberation that they seek. Okay, the last one is a post-advocate's counter position. Post does not ignore negative factor, but rather it seeks to give attention to the positive to counter the historic dominance on a problem. Also focus approach to the change. Okay, that's all. I will give to the next presenter. Thank you.
Okay, hi and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NABIHAH binti ROSLI. My entry number is 188203241. Okay, today I will continue. The last slide is dialogic organizational development. Okay, it has two, traditional diagnostic OD and dialogic OD. Okay, we go one by one. What is the traditional diagnostic OD? Begins with a diagnosis of the situation. Change come from identifying, planning, and managing charge in a systematic unfreeze to freeze and sequence. And the last, consultant's role is neutral facilitators who retains distance from those being affected. Okay, and the next is dialogic OD. What is a dialogic OD? Is a work with people in a way that creates a new awareness, knowledge, and possibilities. The second, engage with stakeholder in a way that challenge existing norms, belief, and behaviors. And the last, consultant's role is as a facilitator who become a part of the situation being changed. Okay, and the last is how dialogic OD and diagnostic OD are different based assumptions. There are two differences with dialogic OD and diagnostic OD. Okay, first we go to the how the OD practitioner influence the organization. Okay, dialogic OD is working with people in a way that creates a new awareness, knowledge, and possibilities. And diagnosis OD, carrying out diagnosis of the organizational situation before intervening. Okay, next, what's make change happen? For dialogic OD is engaging with stakeholders in ways that describe and shape exciting patterns of norms, beliefs, and behaviors, leading to the emergence of new possibilities and associated commitment. Although diagnosis OD applying expertise to identify, plan, and manage the change in a system, unfreeze, change, refreeze sequence. Okay, and the last, the consultant's orientation. For the logic audit, as an involved facilitator who becomes part of the situation being changed, and diagnosis audit as a neutral facilitator who retains a separateness or distance from doing affected. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Last topic is the sense making. Okay, drawing on the interpreted image of managing organizational change, Carlswick 2000, Wickett or 2005, science-making models provide an alternative approach to the OD schools. And Wick's point of departures is to argue against three common change assumptions. Okay, the first assumption of inertia. Under this assumption, planet intended change is necessary in order to disrupt the force that contribute to a lack of a change in an organization, so there is a lag between environmental change and also the organizational adaptation. So he suggests that the central rules given to inertia is misplaced and result from a focus on structure rather than a focus on structuring flows and process through which organizational work occurs. Adopting the latter perspective leads one to see organization as being in ongoing states of accomplishment and re-accomplishment, with organizational routine constantly undergoing adjustment to better fit change circumstance. The second assumption is that standardized change program is needed. Wick says that this assumption is of a limited value since it fails to activate what he regards as the four drivers of organizational change. And these drivers are animations, whereby people remain in a motion and may experiment, for example, with the job description. Second, direction. This is including being able to implement in a novel way directed strategies. Third one is paying attention and updating, such as updating the knowledge of the environment and reviewing and rewriting organizational requirement. And the last one is respectful, candid interaction, with occur when the pupils are encouraged to speak out and engage a dialogue, particularly when things are not working well. So these drivers emerge from a sense-making perspective that assume that change engage effort to make sense of events that don't fit together. For Wick, most program or intentional change fails to active one or more of these sense-making forces that assist individuals in managing ambiguity. The third assumption is that unfreezing, most often associated with Kurt Lewin's unfreezing, changing, refreezing, change formula. Unfreezing is based on the view that organizations suffer from inertia and need to be unfrozen. But however, if change is continuous and emergent, then the system is already unfrozen. But further effort at unfreezing could disrupt what is essential, a complex adaptive system that is already working. But if there is a demand to be effectiveness in the system, then his opposition is that the best change sequence is following first freeze, which is to show what is occurring in the way things are currently adapting. Second, rebalance, to remove blockage in the adaptive processes. And the last one, third, unfreeze, which is in order to enable further immersion and improvisational change to occur. In this view of organizational change, agents are those who are the best to identify how adaptive emergence change are currently occurring, many of which often are dismissed as a noise in the system. From this sense-making perspective, it's up to manager of change to alter interpretations and labels that capture the patterns in those adaptive choice and or within the framework of sense-making. Management sees what the front lines say and tells to the world what it means. So the sense-making is a social process of meaning construction and reconstructions through which managers understand, interpret, and create sense for themselves and others of their changing organizational context and surrounding. The next slide is James Mills 2003 investigates organization change within Nova Scotia Power, which is a larger electrical utility company based on the eastern shore of Canada. From 1982 to 2002, Nova Scotia Power went through a variety of major organizational change, which is including the introduction of a culture change program, privatizations, downsizing, business process re-engineering, strategic business unit, and the last one is a balanced scorecard accounting. Have found that there were a variety of interpretations within the organization about this change program. Drawing on the work of a week, she argues that this differing sense-making activity across the organization are indicative of the importance of understanding change as the accomplishment of ongoing processes for making sense of organizational events. So she used Wick's 2008 features of a sense-making framework to show how they impacted the understanding of organizational change in the company. This table is about 8 features of a sense-making framework. The first one is a sense-making and identify constructions. The definition is the different way in which pupils make a sense of the same organizational change events and how it is related to their understanding of the way their identity are constructed within organization. So the implication for the change manager is the top-down size initiative requiring a dramatic change of self, which is, for example, from humanist to efficiency focus, are highly problematic and need either to be avoided or handled with a great skills. The second one is a social sense making. The definition is the need that people have to make sense of their situations, not just as individuals but as social individuals in connected to a variety of influence on them, such as supervisor, management, trade unions, and so forth. So the implication for the change manager is an understanding of a social sense making, highly likely the need for manager to identify the social factors that influence sense making in the organizational context. The third one is extracted cues of sense making. So the definition is the need for manager of change to be aware of the way people draw on a variety of cues or idea and actions perhaps taken from the external environment in order to make a sense of a various decision. The implication for the change manager is the change managers need to identify appropriate cues and match them to intended change program, and the way in which these cues are interpreted, however, may inadvertently create a problem for staff in accepting the legitimacy of the change program and its intended purpose. And number 4 is ongoing sense making, which is sense making change over time as a new cues are experienced and event addresses. So the change manager needs to understand that ongoing sense making stabilizes situations and how change act as a shock, generating emotional response and need to act of the sense making. The number 5 is retrospection. The definition is the reference to cosmic arguments that people make sense of their action retrospectively. So the implication is change managers need to understand that different groups will apply their own retrospective sense making in order to understand emerging organizational event. Number 6 is possibility. The way that change management programs need to be sold so that the stories about the change is plausible rather than necessarily accurate. The implement is change managers need to understand the way the contact and power relation impact on their ability to provide plausible stories that gained widespread acceptances of the need for change. And then enactment is where the above aspect of sense making act as influences on sense making. Enactment is about imposing that sense on actions by Holmes Mills 2003. The implication is enactment alert change manager to need to connect sense making to the actions. And the last one is projective sense making. So this is the ability of a powerful actor to project sense making onto a situation, shaping the interpretation of other. So the implication of this is that using legitimate power to impose sense making on part of the organization may be important aspect of understanding the implementation of the change. Then some implication of the sense making perspective on managing change are that first, change managers should try to provide a clear narrative that articulates the what, why, and how the proposed change. And then the second is because humans hate meaning vacuums, so in the absence of a clear narrative, they will create meaning to fill the void, which opens up the possibility for all sort of misinterpretations to take a hold. And manager attempts at sense giving are only one source of information about what is going on, so their effectiveness is not guaranteed. And the last one is a manager should be aware that their actions are likely to be interpreted symbolically, either what the actions means by other organizational members, and that these interpretations occur regardless of whether or not manager intends it to occur. The next slide is literature review or case study. The title of our case study is Building a Collaborative School Culture Using Appreciative Inquiry (AI) by Mark S. Dickerson, Vice President or Associate Professor of Azusa Pacific University in California. The abstract for the case study is the case study revealed the benefit of a collaborative school culture, including reduced teacher isolations, social and emotional supports, opportunities for a professional development and learning, and close ties within significant stakeholders such as families and community organizations. While a collaborative culture may be powerful, so they also may be either misguided or superficial. Further, culture change is difficult, and norms such as teacher isolation and autonomy are well entrenched. These concerns point to the need for a change process that has a positive focus, is essentially self-organizing, encourage deep reflections, and avoid the pitfalls of manipulations by schools administrators. And this analysis points to considerations of appreciative inquiry (AI), a strengths-based process that builds on the best of what it is in an organization. And the second portion of the article reports on the impact that an appreciative inquiry process had on building a collaborative culture in 22 schools located in British Columbia, Canada, and reflect on its strengths and limitations. Okay, for the introduction of the case study is one of the strengths of educational reforms movement in the last two decades has been the call for greater collaborative effort, both among educators as well as with parents, students, and surrounding community. So, the educational researchers Grievous 1994 referred to collaboration as an articulating and integrating principles for schools improvement, providing a way for teachers to learn from each other, gain moral support, coordinated actions, and reflect on their classroom practice, their values, and the meaning of their works. So the Hargreaves argue that in some contexts, collaboration replaces false scientific certainties or debilitating occupational uncertainties with the situated certainties of collected professional wisdom among the particular communities of the teachers. History of this case study is 2005 content. A teacher's relationship with a college has significant impact on the teacher's professional development by providing or failing to provide technical and emotional support that is a reference groups with whom the teacher can identify the scope in incentive to grow professionally and the opportunity to influence others. And then in the other reviews of research study on the partnership between the schools, families, and the communities in 20 nations, centered and abstains 2005 found the success of schools is heavily influenced by connection between the schools and the community. While research supports the benefit of a collaborative schools culture, it is also paints a complex pictures and care is needed to distinguish studies based on the context and the type of collaborative effort involved. The Hargreaves 1994. And for educators, partnership take a time away from the students and responsibility, run the risk of unrealistic expectations for or difference regarding the goals of the collaborative, and also require significant skills in a group's dynamics and conflict management, and also the communication on the part of those leading the collaborations, and depends upon significant administrative support and resources. And by Fulans 2001 observed that the focus on the collaborative culture make us a significant difference, which is the collaborative cultures, which by definition have close relationship, are indeed powerful, but unless they are focusing on the right things, they may end up powerful wrong. Also in this case study, while the cultures differ between the schools and may include a variety subculture, the prevalence norms for teacher as most schools in North America and Britain are those of privacy and autonomy. And politically, a change in the culture may threaten the value and a norm favored by the school's opinion leaders, or disrupt the allocation of valuable resources such as times and also budget or the status. So in addition to the other difficult note as establishing a positive collaborative culture, Richard Stoddard and Cass 2001 note the difficulties in developing an inclusive process that captures all of the different stakeholder voices and manage the barriers of times, language, culture, and also the ideology. So the school's leader seeking to shape school culture must first have a firm grasp of the current culture and its core values, including an understanding of the environmental context and its stage of development. For the history of this case study, why AI is a flexible process, it is generally occurs in 4 phases, which is the first one is a discover phase, during which a participant explore the best of what it is through the responding to interview questions that reveals the positive core of the organization. And the second one is a dream phase, in which participants builds on the themes developed from the discovery phase to imagine the future. The third one is a design phase, during which a participant construct a positive possibility statement that capture the participant vision for the future. And the last one, number 4, is the destiny phase, in which a participant develop detailed action plans to turn their vision into a reality. So in order to the further the exploration of processes designed to increase collegial relationship and collaborative effort in the schools. And this paper describes the collaborative aspect of appreciative inquiries process involving 22 schools operated by the Vancouver Schools Board (VSB) in the British Columbia. For the analysis of this case study, the Vancouver Schools Board is a larger multicultural urban schools district located in North America with over 100 schools and 57,000 students. In order to provide teachers, parents, students and community members with an opportunity to shape the future of the district and to provide a more positive focus for dialogue rather than the debates over high-stake standardized testing, and also the VSB superintendents and schools board launched an appreciative inquiry initiative in January 2006 that focused on engaging adolescent student leaders. Discussion of this case study, they note that AI contributed to the process of building a collaborative culture in the participating schools by first providing the relational space, times and purpose necessary to interact and network, and the second, encourage participants to reflect on learning and share their values with others, and then engaging a diverse group of stakeholders, and then enabling participants to have a better understanding of the world system. And number 5 is helping participants manage culture difference, and then providing the energy and sense of permission for action, and also allowing participants to self-organize in the both intra-schools and also inter-school collaborative efforts. So the discussion of this case study, some of the occasions for making a new connection were first the participating as a member of the such teams, and then second is interfacing with a district staff, a school administrator, teachers, support staff, parents, students, and also the community members regarding in the initiative. So the third is sharing stories of powerful learning experience with other stakeholders, and the number 4 is joins others to co-construct a new further for their schools at the AI summits. And the last one is number 5 is working to implement the action plans developed during the destiny process. And the site team members were amazed by the participations of such a diverse group of community members, and note that the AI initiative attracted much larger group of constituents than the school's planning process employed in the past. And then through the interaction with diverse groups of stakeholders, a new administrator were able to learn about the culture and histories of their schools, and also the teachers glean insight from students and parents, and also the administrator, high schools and also elementary school teacher learn from each other, and the communities group brought their expertise and resources to the tables. And also the one's parent remarked that her participation in the process providing her with the opportunity to interact with the educators, students, other parents, and also the members of the community, and discover that they share similar goals for their schools. And a bridge were also built between elementary schools, high schools, and adult education schools, and each of which carries its own unique cultures and is isolated from the other, even when they serve the same population of the student, and the educator in the adult education schools often see themselves as ignored by the rest of the district and were pleasantly surprised when they were provided with an opportunity to work with the other schools in the AI initiative. And as one elementary teachers note, they can teach us a lot about where our schools, elementary and high schools, need to go and to navigate our futures. So just as the staff of adult education centers feels isolated from the rest of the district, administrator and teachers at elementary schools felt unappreciated by the secondary schools. Then the striking difference in the culture between elementary and high schools were expressed by one of the elementary school's principals in this way, which is, there are apples, we are orange, we teach a kid and they teach a subject. So despite this difference, the several sides teams member reported that close connections were built between the high schools and also the elementary schools through the AI initiative. And this case study providing the energy and also the motivation to take action side teams member, and note that the energy and motivations to take action came from a number of sources in the AI initiative, which is the positive focus, the process of sharing story, the confirmation that others shares their goals and aspiration for the schools, and also the willingness to the other to make a commitment for change, and also the personal investments each individual made in the process. So this is a similar collaboration among the high schools and elementary school teachers was initiated at the Central High Schools. So the elementary students needing advanced mathematics trainings and available in their school receive help from a math teacher at Sunnyside High Schools, and at the Central High Schools, elementary school students were able to develop the woodworking skills with the shop teacher or sign up for a high school's math course. So this is similarly, high schools and adult educational schools collaborated to make programming more flexible for the student. So the not high school teams with an adult education schools to allow adult education students take an elective course at not or participate in the band, and to permit high school students to take classes at the adult education centers where the scheduling better fits their needs. For the conclusion in this case study, based on the experience of participants in the VSP Appreciative Inquiry AI initiative, it is appear that AI can provide the inclusive collaboration relationship building process recommended by RIJAL et al. In 2020 that involve many of the stakeholder voice, provide a relation, a space and the time for interaction, manage cultural difference, offer opportunity for a meaningful dialogue, and also the empowers participants to take the action. And Cruz et al. In 1995 identified the several factors factors needed to support a professional teaching community is including supportive leadership, trust, respect, a process for inducting new members, a desire to grow and improve, regularly scheduled times and space for communication and collaboration, and the ability to make a decision for their groups. And nevertheless, the positive and empowering aspect of AI provide a powerful framework for taking the first step toward developing a collaborative culture in a schools, one that offers the time and relational space for the stakeholder to interact and self-organize to pursue cooperative project that they selected. Okay, for the summary of this overall chapter 9 is while the two of change image, caretaker and nurturer, this present a change manager as receiving rather than initiating change. And then the other four image, director, coach, navigator and the interpreter, present the change manager as having an active as opposed to reactive roles in how change occurs in organization. So the image of the change manager as coach is particularly strong in the approach to change that has developed with what is known as organizational development OD and its derivative including appreciative inquiry AI and change as a view from within the perspective of positive organizational POS and dialogic OD. So the coach link is that each of this approach involve encouraging a willingness to change the developing of change capabilities in the pupils rather than seeking to bring about change by top-down edict. So the image of the change manager as interpreter link closely to a sense-making view of the roles of the change manager. And then underpinned by the coach image, the organization development OD approach is one where is adherents present their developmental prescriptions for achieving change as being based, at least traditionally, upon a core set of values, and the values that emphasize that change should benefit not just organization but the pupils who staff them, and the value of inclusions, open communication, collaboration, and also the empowerment and associations with incremental change has meant that there is an active debate as to whether OD represents the essence of how to successfully bring about the change in organization or an approach inconsistent with the demand of a rapidly changing and highly competitive environment. Also, the OD incorporates in diverse and still involving range of approach. AI used for a 4-stage framework, which is discovery, dream, design, and also destiny, which begins with a focus on appreciation of the best of the current organization rather than the traditional problem based on the point of entry. And in a similar vein, a positive organizational scholarship POS looks for the positive in human behavior and assume that a focus on positive in the way to inspire pupil to a greater performance, while the sum of development within OD moves more in the direction of delivering tangible, measurable output. POS explicitly assert the importance of organizational interventions that improve the human condition in a way that are not reducible to traditional pursuit organizational outcomes such as profitability. The Cameron and McNaughton 2014. So the Dialogic OD take the view that the real change only occurs when mindsets are altered, and that is more likely to occur through generative conversations and then persuasion by the facts. So the dialogic approach is associated with the move away from seeing change as a relatively manageable, planable, and linear process to the one could be unpredictable with a far from predictable move. And the last one is as Ham's most study of a Nova Scotia Power show, there are a number of different levels on which the change manager as interpreter operates, each of which require attention. And at the same time, this approach does not imply that mastering each of these levels will always enable intended outcomes to be achieved. While the force, both inside and outside the organization, will ensure that there will always be competing force vying for a privileged place in providing for organizational member an interpretation of what's going on here, as well as what needs to go on here. So the interpreter image therefore points out to change agents they need to have a realistic view of what can be achieved in the undergoing organization change. While the manager of a change may find the science-making approach to be more difficult, given that is less tangible in terms of what needs to be done, it is also likely to give other manager comfort in reaffirming their experience of the massiveness of a change and identifications of a new way of approaching it. The last slide is our reference. Thank you for watching.